Welcome, baseball card fans. My name is Lance, and this is Spitballin Cards, the greatest podcast devoted exclusively to baseball card collecting and investing. We've brought together some of your favorite baseball card experts from around the internet to join us as we spitball about what else? Baseball cards. Now here's your host of Spitballin Cards from the YouTube channel, Scotty B Cards, Scotty B. Scott, what in the hobby of baseball cards are we spitballing about today?
Lance, thanks for the introduction. Everybody, welcome to the new podcast. I have a great group of guys here, and we're going to talk about baseball cards with you every single week. So today we have some great topics. We're going to talk everything from Bowman Chrome. We'll talk about Mike Trout. We're going to talk about Jason Dominguez and everything in between. But the very first thing I want to do is this group of individuals that we have in this call, I've thoroughly enjoyed talking cards with the last few years. And so we decided to make our own podcast. I want to do some small introductions just in case you don't know anybody yet. Each of these individuals also have their own type of YouTube channel if you want to find new content to watch, everything there. But this will be a unique opportunity for all of us to have more off the cuff, not preparing anything, just kind of discussing back and forth more so on sports cards than we normally would. So my name's Scott. If you're new, I actually collect baseball cards. I focus primarily on Mookie Betts, a couple other modern players, and even Billy Butler. So my PC is kind of all over the place, but it's a good time. Jeff, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Scott. Hello, gentlemen. My name is Jeff. On IG, I'm My Favorite Cardboard. And along with my buddy Chris, we've got our YouTube channel, Blabbin' About Slabbin', where we talk about baseball cards. So I got back into the hobby after collecting as a kid in late 2017, 2018, and really was enthralled with the idea of breaks. And since then, I've been mainly a player collector. I've got a lot of specific players I collect: Christian Yelich, Mookie Betts, Mike Trout. So mostly I stick to players now, but I also like to collect wax, collect boxes, and love to talk cards. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate the introduction. Now I think it's a great time to introduce Chris, who is the Blabbin' About Slabbin' partner that you have. Chris, take it away.
Thanks for having me on here, Scotty. I am the other half of the famous YouTube channel, Blabbin' About Slabbin'. Famous is strong, but that's okay. I am a baseball card addict on Instagram because baseball card casual collector just is not going to fit the bill. I live in Southern California, but I am, of course, an Atlanta Braves fan. Most of my PC is Acuna and sadly Freddie Freeman cards. Even though he's gone, I love the guy and I'm certainly not going to stop collecting him. I really appreciate Jeff kind of jumping on the breaks grenade for me. So when I got back in the hobby, after Jeff dragged me kicking and screaming, that was one thing I was able to avoid. So instead I just bought a whole bunch of base rookie cards, which probably not any smarter. But anyway, that's all for me.
Thanks, Chris. Phil, take it away.
Hey, definitely humbled to have been included in this elite group here. Phil Filmington. I'm actually Phil from Wilmington, so that's how I came up with the name. Back in the hobby in 2014. Started doing social media in 2018. Handle Filmington everywhere. eBay, YouTube, Instagram. One of the few guys here that actually uses my YouTube handle for eBay because I don't lowball people. What do I PC? Let's see. I do some wax arbitrage. I PC dollar bills and maybe a little bit of Juan Soto. And that's it for me.
So Phil's Juan Soto only a DH.
Oh, he's so frustrating this year, man.
Jumping in right away.
I'm just asking. That's just what I've heard on Instagram lately. I don't agree with it, but that's what I've heard lately.
Given his age, he's you look at sprint speed, you look at some of those metrics, defensive metrics, not impressive, man, once you factor in his age. We always use his age as a positive based on our argument, but how unathletic is he going to be in his 30s? Right now, sure, keep him out there. He doesn't have injury issues, and maybe he'll even get a little bit better. I think some seasons he's able to put up a marginally positive WAR, and some other seasons he's negative WAR defensively. So I don't know. I'd stick him out in the outfield for now, and that's whatever team spends $400 million on him, $300 million on him is going to have to justify him playing defense in order to give him that contract.
Look, if Matt Holliday can handle left field, I'm sure Juan Soto can handle left field.
Exactly.
As long as he doesn't sign with the Rockies, he'll be fine. That outfield's huge. I don't think that's going to be a problem for Juan Soto. He's not going to sign there. But next up, Teapot. Ty, introduce yourself, man.
Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Tyler Nethercott, better known sometimes as Teapot. Like Phil, I was once known as Teacot, and then some people started calling me Teapot against my wishes, and it just stuck. And so that was me in a building of 1,500 people with people yelling Teapot across the building. It stuck. Came to my new company and said, just call me Teapot. Let's roll with it. So I grew up collecting in the 90s, but mostly basketball cards back then. And I didn't get into baseball until college, which was in the early 2000s. So I had some roommates who thankfully explained the art and science of pitching to me. And that's what really got me hooked into baseball. Just the psychology, the cat and mouse, the way the pitches move. I'm a sucker for a good breaking ball, and I love watching awesome pitchers. So I think probably never more than in recent years have I been more interested in baseball. It's kind of taken the number one spot as probably my favorite sport now, and also as my favorite sport to collect. It was really kind of a new treasure for me to explore and get into with baseball cards about 3 years ago. So I might be the least educated amongst this group, but obviously really honored and excited to be talking about these things. I collect a lot of different things. Basketball cards, football, non-sports cards, Marvel, other quirky stuff. So I kind of dabble a little bit of eclectic collection and everything, but I'm really getting into baseball a lot. Grew up kind of a Tigers fan, and recently moved to Atlanta about 2 years ago. So I've jumped on the Braves bandwagon as my NL team. Chris seemed like a pretty cool dude also, so I figured why not. I've been to about 5 games this summer, and it's just been an absolute blast. I have a lot of Tigers cards, and I'm also starting a John Smoltz PC, which has been really fun. And but in general, I just really like the sport. I really love the sport. I collect a whole bunch of different players and focus on some specific sets, which I'm sure at some point we'll talk about. So I work for a Sports Card Investor as the VP of product development there. So Market Movers is kind of my baby. I've been working on that for over 3.5 years. That's been a lot of fun. And you can find me over at Drummond Card Collector, all one word, on Instagram. And you'll see a few other accounts that I manage linked there. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Ty. And one thing I'll note, I do not believe that we know more than Ty. We all just know very different things. And that's why I like this group as well. We all collect similarly, but it's slightly different as well. Things that might get me excited have no interest to Phil, and vice versa. And so it can be a really good opportunity for us to all share different thoughts, but all in the same great hobby. So I will say as well, I also started in basketball cards. That's what I collected. I actually started with Pokemon cards, went into Yu-Gi-Oh, basketball, then baseball. I did not like baseball until after I graduated high school. And then it just clicked. I love the history of the sport. I love that vintage actually makes sense in baseball. All of it is the best. Plus, baseball is the most fun to collect, in my opinion. It's less dependent on team success, more on, being smart, identifying trends, and that's what we're going to talk about. So the very first thing I want to discuss is we're going to have different topics that we discuss weekly. And these topics might change slightly. The actual cast of individuals that are on this call might change slightly. There might be just 2 or 3 of us any given week. But we always want to start if any of us have any great personal stories that we want to share. I don't, but I know that there are a few on here that actually might have some great stories of some cards they've picked up. And I want to start with Chris because he actually already showed it to us, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I will try to edit this down as best I can. But yeah, my favorite product that comes out every year is Stadium Club Chrome. Stadium Club is the best, so Chrome just makes it better. They have autos in there that follow the design from 1991, the original Stadium Club release, which was like at my peak of collecting. So it gets me like right in the nostalgia feels. So there's on-card autos in here. I was fortunate enough to finally track down, I don't know if I can even show this, but a Ronald Acuna. So it's the 22 Stadium Club Chrome auto with a 91 design. So it's numbered out of 25. There are 5 reds and a super. So there's only 31 autos. And the image is him looking at his World Series ring. So there are 31 91 autos of Acuna holding up his World Series ring. And it's fantastic. This card makes me feel all tingly. I'm not going to lie. So I was really excited. I've actually attempted to buy 7 of these and failed. And so this 8th one managed to actually happen for me. So I'm really excited.
So how long have you been chasing that for then?
Since I saw the mock-up on, I think Beckett does like previews of the set. So Jeff, when did this product come out? It was like early this year, right?
Yes.
We broke a
very
bunch.
late for when it should have been, but it was earlier this year.
Yeah, I want to say it was like March. So I've been chasing it since the moment it was released. I've been trying to find one of these.
That's awesome. I guess I do have one pickup I have. Thank you for sharing, Chris. That's really cool. Mine was also a card I've been chasing. I kind of forgot about it. But what it is, I'll actually have Lance, if you don't mind Lance throwing a picture up. Also, we have Lance. We didn't introduce Lance.
Hey, I'm Lance.
We'll do that right after. That's good enough. But
Cards first, then Lance.
Edgar Allan Poe. You ever heard of him? He's an author. There's an 1888 card of Edgar Allan Poe I've wanted for a long time. And I actually was able to finally track one down. Only 16 of them are authenticated by PSA or SGC. So I found it on Facebook and I was able to make a deal and I got it really quick because that card would have been gone in 20 minutes if I wouldn't have jumped on it right away. So that one's pretty cool. And it's Halloween time, so it's perfect. But Lance, let's hear who you are.
Oh, I am actually not a card collector or investor. I've
This is a rough start, Lance.
Yeah, I know. The reason I'm here is because I just want to be the producer for you amazing gentlemen on the Spitballin Cards channel. I think it's fantastic. I just want to hang out. I have been able to be blessed to be Scott's editor for his YouTube channel for his entire time that he's had his channel, and we have a little history of working together for quite a while, and so here we are. I'll provide any feedback I have about the different cards that you guys are talking about or whatever, different stories. That's why I'm here.
I will say, if we need like a reality check on our expectations of sports cards, Lance can bring us down to earth. But when I started at my first job out of college, I sat down with not this exact Rockies hat, but a Rockies hat. And Lance is a Rockies fan. So we actually bonded over that. There's hardly any real Rockies fan, but Lance grew up in Colorado and went to a ton of Rockies games. And so that's why we were friends. And he forced me to start my YouTube channel. And he thought he would stop editing years ago, but just kept him on. And now we have a whole nother project with Editor Lance, which is great. I mean, not Editor Lance. What are you? You're the producer Lance. Producer Lance.
It's great to be here, really. And Scott and I, we love the Rockies, and it's like very difficult for us. And we can commiserate together.
Yeah, nothing bonds adult men like the misery of a failing professional sports team. It really does.
Hey, well, Chris Bryant's back, guys. We're making an October push. I think we're not quite statistically eliminated yet, so maybe there's a chance.
Cue the Dumb and Dumber scene.
Just awkward silence right there.
I just posted that yesterday with the Tigers. I said on ESPN they were at 0.1% still probability of making the playoffs.
Telling me there's a chance, Ty.
Yeah,
that's perfect. Well, great. Well, thanks for the introductions, guys. The next thing I want to discuss is the next thing we'll always talk about is player news or baseball news, like just baseball card news in general. We're not going to get into the card porn stuff because everybody's gotten into that, and I don't think we have much more value to add. But I do want to discuss a product that's coming out, probably the biggest one of the year, which is Bowman Chrome. So I'm not really a prospector or a wax guy. That's never really been my MO, but we have some great individuals on here who do that type of stuff. I think probably the best one would be Phil. Phil, what are your thoughts on the product coming out?
Yeah, so I pre-ordered my first case already. Mid last week when they came out with the checklist. It was already baked in probably 60-40, like 60% likely that Ethan Salas would make the cut and be in the product and have an autograph, his first Bowman Chrome autograph. And when that became confirmed and the prices didn't jump right away, that's when I picked up my first case at I think about $3,300. So we're dealing with a little spike up, as we often do in recent years, in the number of autograph subjects versus the year prior. So 132 names. Last year, I think it was 112. So it's a jump of about 20%, which whenever you're above 100 autograph subjects for a Bowman product, it's not something you really want to see. But a 20% rise, I mean, we've seen a lot worse. I know with Topps Chrome over the recent years. So at least we have that, and at least they didn't mess with the configuration. You're still getting 2 autographs for a regular hobby box, and of course they have the HTA. So a few things have happened over the last week that have increased prices. First, as I mentioned, the Ethan Salas news. The next day, Hobby boxes jump from like 270, 275 to 290. And then, of course, we've got the Babe Ruth first Bowman Chrome sort of bounty, DA Card World. Maybe they're in cahoots with Fanatics there. Like, why does DA Card World keep on having these bounties for like?
Right? They have to have some incentive. But anyways, keep going.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So that in itself bumped boxes up. It appeared to, I think now you're looking at about 3,700 for a 12 box case. That's like 310 a box. So like when I might not buy any more for now. And it's because of, I look at last year's product, fewer autographs, stronger rookie card checklist. At the time, Wander Franco was a thing. Of course, Witt and J-Rod were pretty hot last year as well. Chorio did have an autograph last year. So that in itself, I think, like almost cancels out Salas, like from a prospect perspective. And there were a bunch of other pretty decent prospects too. So with Bowman Chrome, you have to be a little careful because there's a lot of international players. They don't really have a whole lot of stateside experience. And if they do, it's usually in the Florida Complex League. And the numbers there just, they don't translate at all. So you have to be really careful.
Ask Vladdy about that. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, most of these guys, as soon as they jump to A, high A, like they start to struggle. You start to see that K rate, like not like Ellie, 30, 40%. Sometimes you see like 50% strikeout rates. And these guys flame out fast. And often it means that the product is more volatile than, say, like a Bowman draft. The hitters are more ready. It's going to take 3 to 4 years to see if these guys actually pan out. Where with Bowman Chrome, sometimes you get the book on the guy after the first couple of years, and you're like, all right, the chances of him, never mind being a star, but like making the big leagues is like literally 2% at this point. Like a few years ago, we saw that Robert Pousson. So
yeah,
to pay more than last year's product, which would have been like $275 at release. I'll just say this, Fanatics is doing a pretty good job justifying their current pricing strategy because people are paying it. Unless, they're holding back supply, it looks like a lot of this stuff is moving. And maybe that's a sign of the market being strong. Maybe that's a sign of Fanatics just doing a great job, from an awareness perspective, marketing perspective. Maybe there's a little bit of colluding going on with the prices. So instead of Blowout and DA Card World kind of manipulating prices, now it's Fanatics probably doing something similar. They've imposed rules on hobby shops that buy directly from them. And I think after 3 months, you can then sell to businesses through places like DealerNet. So will that cause a flooding of the market? It'll be really interesting because we haven't been through a full cycle yet. I think Topps Finals will be first mid-October. Maybe that's the 90-day mark. Maybe then you see the market getting flooded for that product, and then it's Topps Chrome, and then it's some of this other stuff. But I don't know, man. Supply's high, but demand's there to match it. So it's hard to bash the current prices, to be honest.
One thing I do want to note, I know, Chris, I think you're about to say something. I do think the success of the One Ring from the Magic the Gathering Lord of the Rings set that we saw, I wouldn't be surprised if bounties on major products are here to stay in some capacity because there was so much excitement around it. That was, if you don't know, that was the first serialized Magic the Gathering card based off of the One Ring from Lord of the Rings. And Post Malone bought that for $3 to $4 million. So because of that, I think they're going to have bounties. And the Babe Ruth Superfractor bounty is going to be like $200,000 is what they listed it as. So that's my thoughts. Chris, what were you going to say?
Sorry, just give my eyes a minute to roll back into my head. I just had a question for Phil, who might know the answer. We know Salas is the big name. Do you know off the top of your head, or if you've read into it, are there any other like top 100 prospects that have their first Bowman Chrome auto in this product?
Yeah, so Salas, I probably should have given a little more information on him. So catcher just turned 17 literally in June, I believe. So he's like, they call that like 17.25. Was born in 2006. And he's played 9 games in Double-A already. And I think he injured himself. He's out for the rest of the year, which is literally just like one more week. So Sebastian Walcott is one of the big names that a lot of people weren't too happy that he doesn't have his autograph in there. So maybe that'll be Bowman next year. But that's a shortstop for the Rangers, similar age, like 17 and a half. I don't think he's played he's definitely not played in Double-A. Maybe he's played a little bit in A and he struggled. But he put up eye-popping numbers in like Dominican Summer League, etc. Some other guys that do have autographs would be Welbin Francisca and Felnin Celestin. So there's a Welbin and a Felnin in this product. And there's a guy named Sam Basalo who's got an autograph only. And then people are kind of pissed right now that Jesus Caba does not have an autograph, but he's got his first card. So those are some of the names. And I'm sure we'll learn more from some of the experts on YouTube over the next few days. I do prospecting more than myself.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, Phil, you touched on this a little bit with the Babe Ruth 1/1. So that's one of the big things they tried this year, right? To ensure more hits in the product by putting first cards of legends. How big is that checklist?
The checklist with regards to all of the like desirable, coveted. I don't think we know too much yet. I think people speculate. Well, they talked about Tom Brady having his first Bowman Chrome 1/1 card or Bowman Chrome card. I don't know if it's just gonna be the 1/1. People are thinking that that's going to be in Bowman Draft, which honestly doesn't need any gimmicks to sell. That's going to be a very strong product without that. And I'm already sort of in my head reserving some of my budget for that. But yeah, I mean, like Scott said, I mean, this is working. I mean, you're taking an already sort of gambling, speculative based like hobby, and you're just like lighting it on fire. Like you're putting it on steroids by adding all these additional contests where it's like, great. One more irrational reason to purchase something when you know you're going to get smoked at the end of the day, but you're just like, but what if I hit that card? You know,
it feels more than ever like a lottery ticket with this edition, like way more. But the thing is, do you think Fanatics has the capacity to make sure this card gets opened? Because so many people, like this is a product people don't open product of, right? It wasn't like Magic the Gathering, which is a trading card game. You open it for playing the game normally, but this is an investment product for a lot of people. Phil, in particular, has a ton of wax invested in Bowman Chrome from past years. Is there a chance that that Superfractor doesn't hit the market for years? Is that a thing, or do you think they will not allow that to happen?
Well, I mean, just look at recent history. All the big cards always find their way of surfacing. Not all of them, but I'd say 90%. In baseball, I don't follow all the other markets. I'm not going to say there's conspiracy. The loaded boxes, in my opinion, they go out on the front line. They're the first batch. So maybe those have the highest likelihood of being opened. Maybe Topps knew that. Maybe Fanatics knows that. But it will surface, which also shows that a lot of this product does get opened. So, and maybe in today's market, given it's flat, people are less like, look at retail. Like people aren't speculating. People aren't investing in retail, obviously, anymore. And a lot of people are probably treating hobby the same way, meaning that it's getting purchased to open.
They seem to find those big cards seem to find the biggest influencers online to be opened. So.
Sometimes, although there have been some of the bounties and some of the bigger cards hit recently, almost uncharacteristically by just like everyday people or even kids. Sometimes hitting these big ones, but it's definitely interesting. I kind of wondered what percentage of sealed product gets opened within like the first 2 weeks or month after a product releases, and then how much sits. And we know, I mean, breakers are a big part of that. They open a ton. And for these, bigger products like this, the more notable ones, they've got to be opening, just breakers alone have got to be opening, I would like 50%. Like they just rip and rip and rip and rip and rip, I would think.
Yeah, sometimes you can tell by pop reports, but that's, people are resubmitting, so that's distorting it. And also it's a kind of a lagging indicator in a way, because it takes a while for that data to come out, for those cards to come back. But sometimes what I look at, Ty, is I look at like reds and oranges and golds. And if I see a similar pattern, even blues and greens, if I start to see like a similar percentage, then I start to come up with, okay, so subtracting a little bit for people resubmitting and crossing and doing all that garbage, like it's probably this. But yeah, I mean, if they bomb on like the estimation of a print run, thinking that like say 2020 update, Topps update paper, terrible product, like nobody in the checklist. Okay, Rosarena was in there. They got lucky from that postseason that like one person desired that product to open it. But like they probably didn't print a whole lot of that. But what if they had printed as much of like 2018 update or 2022 update as 2020 update? And then like, where does all that product go? Just like, might as well like burn half of it. At least then you can sell it.
That's into the Atlantic Ocean.
I was going to say it's 1952 Topps right there. That's the same thing that happened. Well, that's great. So anything else you want to hit on Bowman Chrome before we move forward? Anybody have any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I would just like to say in Bowman Chrome, it's very like, I know all the attention goes to prospects, but some of my favorite cards that Bowman makes are the rookie image variations that come out of Bowman Chrome. And these are almost always images that you only find here. The Wander they reused last year, which really bummed me out. But I feel like the rookies in general in Bowman Chrome are kind of like disrespected in a way. Like they are not massively printed. The rookie autos, for example, there's 18 parallels for prospect autos, but only 6 for rookie autos. And they're hard to find. Like if you try to find a Julio Rodriguez Bowman Chrome rookie auto from last year, like good luck. There are not very many sitting on eBay. It's on card. Like I know Topps Chrome. Julio's a great example because Topps Chrome kind of messed Julio up last year with like the horizontal photoshopped one and then a sticker and update, so people don't even want that one. But anyway, the rookie image variations are great, and the checklist for them this year has pretty much every big name rookie that you would want. Like Gunnar, Adley, Michael Harris, Yoshida, Corbin Carroll, and I'm sure there's more that I'm not thinking of, but I think there's 12 guys, and it's the exact 12 that you would want. So if you're ripping and throwing everything away that isn't a first Bowman Chrome, keep an eye out for the rookies and for rookie image variations.
So one question I want to bring up to everybody is we do not have blue prospect Bowman Chrome autographs anymore. They are now either retired, discontinued, taking a break, who knows? But that has been a staple. We had gold, blue, orange, and red refractors as like the cards everybody wanted. With blue retiring, do you think something will take its place? Or do you think the past blues will lose value? Like, what do you think will happen because of that?
So I don't. So 22 draft had blues, and I guess so. We're making the assumption that 23 draft won't. But I guess what you're saying is Bowman baseball and Bowman Chrome lack.
Yeah, I'm pretty
prospect.
sure.
Okay.
I could be off base here, but I could have sworn I saw someone say that it was not included on the checklist.
It's one of the more like mind-numbing things that they've done. I think it's like you have cards with like this demand, and it's all like, how could that not be a mistake? I don't know. This doesn't make any sense. But I mean, I'm not going to put the same 4x multiplier or whatever it is on blue waves because true blues don't exist anymore for a certain release or for a certain year or a couple of years. Like I'm just going to avoid that parallel entirely. I don't know what you guys think.
Agreed.
I think it helps a little bit for like gold. But Chris, what were you going to say?
I was going to say the rookie autos do have blues. It's the prospect ones that do not. So I mean, yeah, it's not going to make me not want any older blues, but yeah, I think like you said, it's going to make the golds, I think, all the more desirable because there's so many waves and like weird color parallels that the pure colors or true colors are just going to be even more desirable now because
there might be some people out there who don't really know what we're talking about because when we say that there's true colors or pure colors, those are the same colored parallels that have been around forever. So if we look at Bowman Chrome all the way back to like even when probably Mike Trout's year, we'll go to there, right? He had the base refractor out of 499. He had the blue out of 150, the gold out of 50, the red out of 25, the red out of 5, orange out of 25 super fractor. He also had an X fractor out of 225, but overall they've lost that blue now, which is unfortunate. And so because of that, I was just questioning, the way the hobby works, are we really worried or is it a concern that while we care, like, right, Scott, Chris, Filmington, Teapot, Jeff, not Lance, we care about this in 10, 20 years, will we not care because it's not a thing anymore? That's kind of what I'm just wondering long-term of it.
Well, I don't actually care. I like the wave parallels way better. No, I'm just
you?
kidding.
No.
I appreciate the purity. I mean, you're speaking to product continuity, and that's something that I have struggled to wrap my head around for years. I'll say more so with Panini than with Topps. Topps has done a better job historically of having better product continuity, at least amongst their staple, products. There's been more predictability, but it's something I try to think about a lot. Is I flash back 20, 30 years. If I flash back to my childhood, I can lean on my basketball card knowledge, and something like precious metal gems were like an afterthought in the 90s, and they're now the it cards. You could go into a whole rabbit hole and a whole episode for a different podcast about why that is and how that happened. But that's sort of the reality. And so when we think forward and project like 20, 30 years out, I do sometimes find myself just looking at everything that's out there saying, okay, so what is it that nobody's talking about now that's going to have like some cult following 20 years from now and then suddenly become super popular? Because there's almost certainly will be. I feel like that's sort of an aspect of the hobby. I don't know what that is.
And probably Rockies cards. Just anything Rockies.
Probably Rockies cards.
Black parallels.
Invest in Rockies.
Yeah.
Black parallels.
Phil, do you want to show off that? Why did you talk about that card at the beginning, man?
Oh, I don't know.
Didn't even mention it.
Yeah, it just came
Oh,
in
I
today.
don't know. Just a black Otani.
Yeah,
Otani,
ho hum. It's
PSA 10.
I couldn't afford
Put it in the
the
pile.
I couldn't afford the true rookie, so I settled for the debut. Thought I got a pretty good deal. So I'm a multiplier guy, even with like non-Bowman stuff. Because as some of you guys know, I publish every couple of years. I have been publishing some Bowman Chrome first autograph multipliers. I know most of you guys understand, but some people might not. And usually the black parallel sells for roughly 6 to 8x the gold. But that doesn't hold true for rookie debuts, nor would it hold true for like the other Otani cards, like the one with the Ichiro, the one where he's on the golf cart. It's probably closer to 3x. So it's very tough to appraise a card like that. Like I was looking at Bryce Harper, but that's his best pack pulled rookie, as most of you guys know. So that's in a different class. And I was looking at Tatis, and I was looking at that, and I'm like, okay, the multiplier is like between 4 to 6x. So basically, though, if he turns into mostly a hitter, as I knock my whole equipment over, then this card might even be more important and as years go on. But generally, like cards like this, the debuts, they tend to have like a high beta. What I mean by that is like when the market goes up and when it's volatile, this tends to like either outperform or underperform the market. So it gets its biggest spikes when like Otani, his market goes nuts. So also look at like Independence Day parallels. Those now outsell the black parallels by about 2x for this year. And I get it. Independence Day parallels, they look awesome. But will that stand over time? Because the black parallel is still it's still a true color at the end of the day, right? And Indie Day parallels, like the more they go on, and I don't know, you can make an argument there. Like they're killing that design by putting it on the borders.
They're killing it.
But then 2018, people are still remember that for being awesome. So like it doesn't make those cards look any worse, really. So, but anyways, I thought I got a good deal on that.
And for those listeners that are on Spotify, we need to be conscious of that. This is our first time, so bear with us. But Phil has a 2018 Topps update Shohei Ohtani rookie debut. It's his only flagship rookie. You could argue it's not a flagship because it's a debut and not the true base card of Ohtani. But it's a black parallel PSA 10. So we're saying maybe that one has value because it is, the true color, plus it's the hitting version and variation. So thanks for sharing, Phil. I think that is one all of us would have been very excited about to have. But the next thing I want to jump into, we talked about Bowman Chrome. I feel like we have a good idea of the set. Overall, Bowman Chrome, you never really know with the prospects what's going to happen for at least a year or two. Because it could not be Ethan Salas who's the guy, like really easily. But we'll have to see what happens there. The next thing I want to talk about is...
Can I add one more thing? I'm sorry. Yes. Can I add one more thing?
Please.
Just in case anyone was curious, I know we all know the answer, but Spencer Strider does not have a card in Bowman Chrome. I know we didn't expect him to, but he doesn't.
Topps hates
Topps
him.
just continue. They will not put him in any products. It's fascinating. But
yeah,
anyway,
all of last year, the image of every single Spencer Strider rookie card was literally the same, wasn't it? Like the same two images?
Yes. And we are still waiting for his first base Topps Chrome card.
Wow.
Still doesn't have one. Anyway, as you were.
That's wild. It's one of those things, Topps. You never know what they're doing. But you'd think Spencer Strider being the league leader in strikeouts the last couple years, and plus he broke the all-time record for strikeouts his rookie year or whatever it was. Yeah. But yeah, so
they put him on the All-Star rookie team. He has a Gold Cup card in Series 2 of Flagship, but that doesn't warrant a Topps Chrome card.
They must be saving him for update. They have to be. Maybe their goal is to keep him as a big name, right? Because they do that every year. So a few random players they keep for update.
Yeah, maybe there's just a strong anti-mustache feeling over at Topps. I don't know.
That's fair. That's very fair. Well, cool. So the next thing I want to discuss is Michael Nelson Trout. There was recent news that the Angels are willing to trade Trout if Trout wants to be traded. It's kind of weird they came to the media that way. It kind of forces Trout to ask for a trade, in my opinion. But I want to discuss if we think it'll happen first, but second, how it's going to impact cards. Jeff, I want to hear your take on it before we dive into it. What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
Well, I think that he should ask for it. And you're right. It's interesting how it did come out. They kind of put the pressure on him to want to ask for the trade. I think after what happened at the deadline, and now with Ohtani, I just don't think there's any reason for him to stay. He's said repeatedly that he wants to play for a winner, and that's just not going to happen, probably for the life of his contract there. But the problem is he's got such a huge contract. What are they willing to give teams along with Trout in order for them to unload that contract?
My question is, Chris, you go first.
I'm going to say something that no one should ever say out loud, but I'm going to give the Angels the benefit of the doubt. That sounded wrong coming out of my mouth. But I think they put that out there to make it easier on Trout.
Yeah.
Like to sort of let him know that the door's open, to let everyone know that it's like, it won't be him forcing his way out. Like, I think they were kind of teeing it up for him because they know it's coming. And maybe they've even already talked about it.
So you think that was coming from a good place from the Angels?
Yeah,
I think because they could have the opposite side. They've seen Trout's medical history. Maybe they're trying to get out of it themselves. $250 million. But I think I might agree with you. I think Trout has done more for the Angels than he should have at this point. And this year, I actually feel really bad for Angels fans. I can cry as a Rockies fan. Lance can cry as a Rockies fan. And Teapot can cry as a Tigers fan for the year we had, but it was relatively expected. The Angels went all in twice this year and failed twice this year. So I'm glad that it's happening. Teapot, what are your thoughts on it?
I think Trout should definitely be out. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was even, some conversation behind the scenes just between him and the front office saying, hey, look, let's go about this the right way. But I've given you guys my all, my absolute all. Maybe left a few games to be played with some of the injuries over the years, but short of that, he's been very committed and has stayed there. I think they're looking at the situation going, there's a high likelihood Ohtani's leaving. Rendon hasn't paid off at all. That's been one of the worst signings probably in baseball history.
Hasn't played at all is what I think.
Yeah, hasn't played at all. Hasn't paid it. Yeah. And so then they've got Trout. So they need to blow the whole thing up. Whether or not they will, I don't know. They've got to be smart about it. But like you said, I think finding the right suitor is, maybe going to be tough. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Dodgers, wind up bringing Trout in and him staying basically where he is, just switching to the NL and going to a contender. But a lot of that may have to do with where Ohtani winds up. I have thought, like, how crazy would it be? Sometimes I find myself with baseball scratching my head about how these teams wind up with so many different high caliber players. And it's kind of a different thing having, looking at other sports where the caps are a lot more strict and it can be it can be a lot harder to build super teams in, football, for example, than it can in a sport like baseball. But after I saw what the Padres did, just in terms of names on paper, obviously it hasn't worked out for them this season. It'd be pretty wild if somehow it was like, hey, Ohtani's going to the Dodgers, and now Trout's going to the Dodgers, and they're staying on the same team. Who knows? Obviously, there's a lot of different pieces that have to move around, and I'm not as well versed into the minor league pipelines and who these teams have to offer. It's always kind of interesting for me to see. I feel like it's always like a wait and see, since I'm not in the prospecting game when I hear about these big trades. And then a few years later, you look back and you go, oh yeah, that's what they got for him, and that was actually pretty good or not that great, but. I would love to see Trout leave. I would hate to see him wind up on a divisional rival of like the Braves or the Tigers. That would be less than ideal. Like if he wound up on the Phillies or the Mets, I wouldn't really worry about it as much with the Mets because it's the Mets and I don't think he'd go there. But the Phillies, I know there's a lot of people who are excited about maybe a Bryce Harper, Mike Trout, kind of union, but anywhere but I would say the NL East would be ideal.
Do you think someone like the Braves will want to go for Trout because they have so much financial flexibility? Because at worst, Trout is a positive asset when it comes to attendance and jersey sales, in my opinion, for at least the next few years. Like, Chris, as a Braves fan, is that something you want? Or do you think it would actually hamstring you because of the way you're operate with the younger guys and contracts and stuff?
I mean, I would love it, but I don't think I don't see how that could possibly work because the Angels would have to eat a bunch of money and the Braves don't have the prospect capital to swing that unless they took the whole contract. And if they took the whole contract,
you could do a Harris for Trout swap. What do you think of that?
Throwing Acuna.
No. they're not going to do that. No.
Sorry, Chris.
I don't see that. I just don't see that being I don't think that's going to work. I think they'd rather take their money. Their offense is fine. I think they'd rather take whatever money they have and lock up Fried and, see how Kyle Wright bounces back next year and spend their money there. I don't think the Braves are likely. Unfortunately, I do think the Phillies might be the most likely.
I think so too.
They're
Is Dombrowski
definitely top 3, I would say.
Yeah, it takes some balls. It takes you've got to
spitball.
you can't be too risk averse when you're making a play for Trout. So that rules out the Yankees just from like how unsuccessful some of their more recent big moves were, like Giancarlo Stanton, Judge so far, although it's still early. The Braves, it's almost like diminishing returns. They're already selling enough jerseys with Acuna. Offense is fine, like Chris is saying. It's like, why would they want to make that gamble?
More than fine.
I could see Cohen doing it to the Mets and certainly the Phillies. And because that might be where Trout wants to play too, if that matters.
So what does that do to his card or Ohtani's card? What if they end up together? Does that just like blast their cards into like space? Like, what does that do?
I would argue Ohtani has hurt Trout prices personally because Trout has not been the best player on his own team the last few years. Trout hasn't done himself any favors by not playing, but I don't know if that would help at all if he went with Ohtani. It won't affect Ohtani's pricing, probably won't affect Trout's, but it has the potential to hurt Trout's, in my opinion.
I think if Trout gets traded or goes to another team, it could add some new life to his card prices depending where he lands. Right now, we've talked about this a lot, just offline. Like, you look at the immediate horizon next 3 to 5 years for Trout and just kind of wonder, is he even going to play? What's going on with him? He's constantly injured. How does his legacy settle out? And hopefully he's still got even more than that ahead of him, but the injuries have been a real concern. If he goes to another team and, kind of gets back under the spotlight and, as a key contributor to another big squad, that could definitely add some juice back into his prices.
Yeah,
and I will
sure.
say, this year, the injury was not like a muscle injury. It was a hand bone, which is you can't really help that, which is good. It wasn't like he had another calf tear, I would say, for his long-term availability. It was more of a freak thing, but take that for what it is.
Yeah, I as a Braves fan, I would hate to see him come to our division, but at the same time, it would be kind of exciting to watch the Phillies play with Trout and Harper in the lineup when they're not playing us. Like, I would really enjoy it. Like, they could stick him in left field at Citizens Bank. Kyle Schwarber's playing there now. Like, he doesn't have to do too much. He's not going to have to run around and cover a ton of ground. They could probably get I bet if they sent Andrew Painter, which is like their number 1 pitching prospect who's recovering from Tommy John, and the Angels ate like a third of the contract, I bet they'd do it. But I don't know. It's half nightmare, half kind of fun scenario. But I can't see him going to the Mets. That makes no sense. That's climbing out of one burning dumpster and climbing into another one. Like, that doesn't. I don't see him doing that.
I agree.
The Mets are good at that. The Mets are good at dumpster hopping.
As far as his values, though, I just think he has to show that he can be healthy. Yeah, he may get a temporary bump wherever he goes for a new team, a new fan base to get on board. But Trout has a lot of player collectors that aren't fans necessarily of the Angels, me being one of them. So I think that he just needs to prove that he can stay healthy, and that would be more juice than anything.
100% agree. 98%, maybe 100%. 99% of his value is going to be derived based on his own accomplishments. You look at the market question you asked Lance. There was a point in 2021 where I think the 3 most expensive cards were all Angels players: Pujols, Ohtani, and Trout. So the cannibalization thing wasn't really a thing. And I mean, the Angels are still probably like a top 15 market. Go to the Phillies, maybe you're a top 9 market. To me, that doesn't help. And I'm not a believer in like postseason success being that helpful to a player's long-term values, maybe like short-term bump and then crash in, December, January. So with me, I'm with Jeff here. It's all about how he plays. He's got to stay in the field. But another reason why he's a risk now, and Scott knows, is because WRC plus offensive metrics were down for the first time, like probably the worst since his rookie year this year. So now you've got injuries, not just sapping his ability to stay in the field, but also his production, which is not good. So that's just another risk you're taking as a team, taking him on where he's clearly past his peak in his decline phase.
I want to point out, speaking of that, I do have his baseball reference page pulled up. Heading into this year, he had basically, I think it was a 999 OPS with a 176 OPS plus, which is one of the best all time. I think it's actually the highest OPS plus for right-handed hitter ever heading into this year, outside of the Negro Leagues, like Major League Baseball, But if we look at
his career, you're saying for his career,
not off a year, for his career. This year, however, outside of his rookie year, is the first time his OPS plus has fallen below 165. He had a 130 OPS plus when he got hurt. And a 130 OPS plus is still good. He had 2.7 WAR in only 80 games, so he's on pace for six WAR, but that's not what we're used to. So I think that could be the primary issue. The one thing I will also say, though, Phil, we talk about like personal achievements versus team achievements. If anyone in Major League Baseball is going to get a bump from a hot World Series run, it's Mike Trout. Like, if anyone, to destroy that narrative, that's the only thing, because that's the biggest thing. If you ever see any post on X or Twitter, they say, how many playoff games does he have? Like, if he does anything good, like, right? That's the joke people do. So it'd be great. Like we saw with Bryce Harper last year, what that did for his reputation, that amazing playoff run. If Trout can do something similar at all, just once, I think it will kind of put it to rest a little bit. But maybe that's just wishful thinking as a Mike Trout fan.
No, that's a good point. I think Kershaw saw a bump from like rewriting his narrative, just like choking again and again and again, couldn't last. Like his durability wouldn't last him through the playoffs. Then he won his first World Series, even though it was a shortened season. And then I think that definitely helped his stuff for the long term.
All I know is baseball is better when Mike Trout's playing. That's all I know. So I hope wherever he goes, he's healthy and he has better luck than the Angels.
Yeah, he hasn't played in an All-Star game in 6 years.
It's always hurt. But yeah, so that's a great thing. One thing I do want to point out as well, we have the next Mike Trout coming up, Jason Dominguez. He is also hurt. What are our thoughts on that? Do we have any thoughts on Jason Dominguez's injury? Silent room.
I've been talking about Dominguez since that $474,000 sale that absolutely boggled my mind. And I feel like I was kind of living in the twilight zone over the last week or whenever, as he's called up and actually hitting home runs, hits a home run off to Justin Verlander, and it was his first at bat, and just like it's like, okay, this couldn't be going any better for this guy. Obviously, he tore it up in spring training, and has shown
poor choice of words, T-Bot.
What's that?
That's a poor choice of words.
Yeah. Whoops. Sorry. But you never like to see this. Like I said, as just a fan of the sport, I don't like to see that. I don't like to see the injuries. The prices boggle my mind. The prices absolutely boggle my mind. You can make all the comparisons in the world to all the all-time greats who have gone before him at every position, and look at that and say, well, what does this guy have to do for this card to actually hold up and withstand the test of time? I don't know. He has to be multiple MVPs, 80 WAR plus, like he has to be the next Mike Trout, like you said. And if he's not, that's not going to happen. This is not the start you wanted. It started out with the start you wanted, and then getting injured right away is not what anybody who's a fan of the Yankees or a fan of prospecting or a fan of his cards is hoping for. It's, injuries are probably the most frustrating thing in sports in general, cards or otherwise. It just always sucks.
And
I don't like the Yankees or prospecting, and I was bummed when he got hurt.
Yeah.
I guess
it's always fun to see that type of thing play out. It's always fun. And for those that don't know, Jason Dominguez was the hot top #1 Yankees prospect. They are realizing their playoffs hopes are gone, so they bring him up, and he tears his UCL and is getting Tommy John surgery. So that's what's going on. So he's out. He could be like Bryce Harper and actually be fine for spring training if it's a 5-month recovery. Realistically, it's probably closer to 9 months. So he'll be there most of the year. He'll be a rookie. But overall, I agree with you, Ty. There's nothing he really could do to really maintain the value. The only thing he really had going for him is he plays for the Yankees, and he does have a high ceiling. So it's a real risk that I can't fathom, because that's like more than my house is worth. I just can't fathom it. Maybe if I had all the money in the world, it'd be a fun little, dash on and like collectibles as an investment or something.
When I first saw Jason Dominguez and I saw the picture of his face and everything, and I heard about the card, mentally, I just assumed that he must be like built like Yordan Alvarez, maybe with bigger legs. And I just assumed he was like some giant Dominican guy, like 6'4", that could just mash. And then I found out he was 5'9", and I was like, what? No, look at what Jose Altuve's done, buzzer or no buzzer aside. And his cards aren't like selling for pretty wild for a guy who's like 5'9", $170 to.
He gets all of that build though. I mean, like Altuve 5'6", those extra 3 inches somehow, like what you're saying, Teapot. You see pictures of his face, his neck, his thighs, his buttocks. I'll just say it. I mean,
Phil, wow, man, you're getting us all excited here.
He's
Episode
got
one,
like the
getting
exact
graphic.
opposite build of me.
Spitball builds.
You should have let off at the buttocks, Phil. I like that. Chris, you have I can see you.
Yeah, I have a question for everyone in this room. If any one of us happened to be ripping a case of 2020 Bowman Chrome, I forget which one he's in, but if you pulled one of the red autos, would any of the 5 of us hold that card?
I would not. And I would be okay if the 1% probability happened, it goes up. I would be okay with it.
Well, it depends when you pulled it. Did you pull it in June after his terrible first half? No, he did great in spring training, but like he started really slow. And it was like, who is this guy? He's not even hitting for power in the minor league games, but he did it in preseason. So I'm confused. Yeah. But it does take a while for some of these young players to show that game power. And it's acceptable as long as they're not hitting too many ground balls, especially middle infielders. It takes them a while to develop that power. And then clearly, you look at the walk numbers, the strikeout numbers, and they started to improve and get even better. When he got called up, it was like, okay, this he might be ready. And he was ready, well, at least for the first week. So small sample. The same guy that owns that 1/1 Superfractor auto owns Shine. He owns the Ellie 1/1 Superfractor auto. So what are the chances that both of those guys are going to make it? So at best, one will go to 0. What's going to happen to the other one? Is it going to more than double to offset it? I don't know.
Phil's asking big questions.
There's a big question in this that we should have this as a separate, longer conversation sometime. But I've just wondered, with the way the hobby has had this new influx of people, new, let's call it investment money, business money, all these different things over the last few years, does that set a different precedent for the cards from this era long term? Specific ones, not all of them. The vast majority of them just can't hold the value. But does it set a different precedent to where people who came in now and put this big money into these cards are just more likely to prop up that value long term and not care too much about, a 2000s, Ichiro card like they would an Ellie De La Cruz? I don't know. I guess we'll have to see how it plays out. But there's just so much money now flowing into these cards that the prices, when you stack them up against historical ones, don't make sense. I don't know. I don't know if it's just destined to come down, or if there's going to be something to people just saying, no, we just feel really good about that era and keeping money, huge amounts of money in these certain players.
Right, Scott. What sort of Mookie Betts cards could that individual have bought for that $474,000?
All the reds, every single one of them, so all 5 of those.
All the Mookies.
And what are the chances that he has a career remotely?
The entire market cap?
I've really tried my best not to bring up Mookie Betts in this podcast. It's like the meme with the kid with the red face and all the veins showing. That's been me the whole time. But it's one of those things where it's like, what else can Mookie do to really increase his values compared to these players, right? And the odds of them even having – so Mookie's at 30 years old with probably 64 to 65 WAR when it's all said and done this year. It's just not probable, and it's just not likely. So,
good topic for another episode. That could take a while.
And one thing I want to point out, big money into cards. We can look at Steven Strasburg as really the first person that had a superfractor that people put money behind. If you remember when his superfractor was pulled, it sold for like 12 grand or 15 grand. And that was wild back in 2010. And so because of that, I bet that Steven Strasburg, if it hit the market right now, would probably go for $1,000. So there is going to be a day reckoning. Maybe more, maybe good memories from 2019, maybe more. But realistically, there's going to be a reckoning on these cards, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If you think I'm wrong, please. But
I think it would go for more than 1,000. Yeah, it definitely would go for what it's
at least half loss, right? And let's say at best it goes for 6.
Yeah, it's worth at least Wander Franco's prices. So Teapot, one of the things that I think about is kind of what you're saying, and I don't know if this is aligned to exactly the way you think about it, but I think Mike Trout and Ken Griffey Jr. having peaked during a golden era of collecting, investing, a golden era of the hobby, I think that helps their values versus Albert Pujols, Peyton Manning, Buster Posey, where their peak was during a time where not as many people collected. So you don't see as many Facebook groups devoted to people that are willing to kind of hold, not, I wouldn't say hold the bag, but just like hold for longer and just consume the card, as somebody on Instagram would say. So maybe there's something to that, and maybe that's going to help Trout in the long term.
That's a good point. That's a very fair point. I've wondered how that stuff will shake out long term. It's weird. I'm seeing more traction in other sports behind 2000s cards now than I have over previous years. There's people sort of kind of finally coming around. I think there's an age thing, especially in football. A lot of people who kind of grew up watching some of these guys in the 2000s and are super into fantasy football are now like putting higher premiums on guys who had strong seasons, strong, few run of seasons, and especially like Manning and Breeze have been getting more chatter. It hasn't necessarily reflected in their prices shifting dramatically, but I think you might be onto something with, kind of those just ebbs and flows in the broader market and when people are in peak collector mode and then sort of taking breaks. Awesome.
Well, everybody, I have one final segment where I don't want to go too far over an hour. For those that are still listening, thank you so much. We're going to have these videos every week, so feel free to tune in whenever you would like. Check out everybody's YouTube channel. But final question, I want to do a would you rather. Maybe we can do a few would you rathers. Would you rather invest your money into Wander Franco or, who's a good other example? Who else is out there?
Trevor Bauer.
Trevor Bauer.
Trevor Bauer. Wander Franco. Actually, I know who I would take easily in that decision. Who's the guy that was on the Pirates that went to prison for?
Oh, God.
You know what I'm talking about? What's his name?
Yeah, I think it was like Vasquez.
Felipe Vasquez. You taking Wander Franco or Felipe Vasquez?
I don't think any of us can answer for political reasons.
Okay. Let's do one that's a bit better. Who are you taking? Spencer Strider, Chris, or are you taking Zach Gallen?
In terms of whose cards would I put my money into?
Yeah,
Strider, and not just because of the jersey and my emotional attachment to him, or my jealousy of his legs. Like
And
the
his
hobby
buttocks.
loves Nolan
right
Ryan.
word there.
The hobby loves Nolan Ryan. The hobby loves strikeouts. Top seems to not love strikeouts, but collectors do. So
Yep.
I would go Strider. Plus Zach Gallen, he's really, really good, but Strider's way better looking. And I'm not sure that affects his card values. I just felt like I should point that out.
Hey, I think that's a very fair point.
Could hurt Rafael Devers. You might be onto something.
Yeah, it could, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay, here's one for my good man Jeff. Are you taking Cody Bellinger or are you taking Christian Yelich? Moving forward, buying cards for the long term.
Well, I've got my bias, and I'll stick with that. I'll stay with Yelich. I mean, he's still not that far off a Hall of Fame track because he had multiple good seasons. He's kind of reinventing himself now as more of like sort of a leadoff spray hitter, speed guy, because he's not hitting the 45 home runs like he did, which I appreciate that he's doing something to make that contract less of an albatross for the Brewers. But Bellinger was great this year, no doubt about it, but I haven't seen the same track record. I would have to go with Yelich.
Anybody else? Oh, sorry. What was that?
All right,
They're both cheap.
They are both cheap.
All right, two quick things. One, Jeff is biased against Bellinger because I know he doesn't have him in any fantasy league this year. So his anger about that is definitely clouding his decision. Secondly, does Yelich get extra points for looking just like Pete Davidson?
If this was an Ariana Grande investment, probably.
I've never heard
That's a good point. Yeah, if he shows up with Kim Kardashian at some kind of MLB gala, then we probably can give him his cards a little bump, right?
Hey, J-Lo almost brought back A-Rod. So that you have some valid points there. So, but I will say Christian Yelich is 31 with 39 WAR. Cody Bellinger is 27 with 21.9 WAR. For some reason, I thought he was significantly higher than that. I am taking Christian Yelich, personally. Who knows? Maybe his kneecap will finally recover and he'll have another MVP year. I hope.
Yelich is weird with those the launch angle spikes from year to year, kind of like Vlad.
Yeah.
Like he drives you crazy. Like look at like that outlier year where he won MVP. In his other year where he was awesome, and then you look at like anything else, it's like two different players. It's weird.
Well, and it varies even during the season. Like you see, he'll have a series where he hits. Did you see that home run he hit at Coors earlier? It was like 490 feet. It was
awesome.
Yeah.
He hits the ball hard. He's still really impacting the ball. Kind of a weird case.
Yeah, and then he'll go a week or two where he gets them up in the air and they all leave the yard, and then he can't do it again for a month.
Final player, and then we'll wrap this episode up. Austin Riley or Rafael Devers? Who are you investing in?
Who's that for?
Everybody, group. I want to, Chris. I know what you would do. So if you want to hold, I want to not have you like give impressions to anybody. Teapot, who are you taking?
I'm going to go with Austin Riley. I know the defense is a big concern with Devers, and maybe he moves to DH and we don't ever think about that again. But
Wow,
it's an interesting. Riley gets so overshadowed. He doesn't get talked about a lot. He's really good. I would put him on probably my top 5, for sure, top 10 undervalued list of baseball players, and I don't know how he breaks through that, but I think I'm really biased against Devers because I had a bunch of his cards. I sold them. I sat on them for a long time. I sold them, and then they went up, and then so I don't know. I might be the wrong person to ask, but the defense thing just bugs me. He's not good.
I'll read some numbers to you. Okay. Actually, Chris, you had some thoughts, and you're a Braves fan who collects Devers, so you're the appropriate person to ask this question to.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone else, like if Phil or Jeff want to chime in first, please.
What I'd say is they're actually like eerily similar. You're looking at like sub 6% walk rates. You're looking at 27 to 40 home run power. You're looking at middling to below average defense. Devers has the batting average advantage in most seasons, and then Riley will have the home run output advantages. So in similar ages too, right? So like, how can you really have like that much of a definitive stance that's like different with one guy versus the other? WAR hates both of them because of their walk rates.
That's what I was going to say. Both terrible for WAR, but
yeah,
Devers is counting up those stats, and he got an early start, so he's going to probably end his career with some pretty nice big numbers.
Yeah, and if you say that Devers is going to break down, be a DH, then you have to make the similar argument to Riley. Like, oh, well, look at Devers' body. Well, Riley's not a great defensive third baseman, right? Or has he gotten better?
He's good. Riley, yeah, he's good. He's gotten really good. Yeah. He actually, for his career, is worth 3.1 defensive WAR, while Devers is worth, where was it? Negative 2.9. That's a big difference.
Negative 16.
That's what it feels like. But also, WAR 17 for Riley, 18 for Devers. Batting average 273 versus 281. OPS 845 versus 852. OPS plus 122 versus 124. So offensively, they're starting to profile the same. And the thing with Austin Riley is he started a little bit slow. He had a hot rookie year, bad sophomore year, but great last 2 years.
Yeah, but what are their home run RBI totals right now?
Yeah.
That doesn't fit my narrative, Jeff. Guys, it doesn't fit my narrative. Stop asking those questions.
Well, RBI doesn't matter. It's an antiquated stat, but home runs, what's the
home run? 131
34
versus
29.
168. So
I'm sorry, again, Scotty, say it again.
131 versus 168.
Okay.
And Devers has 300 more hits at age 26. He's at 904.
The defense,
those big numbers there. I mean, yes, Phil's right. There's some antiquated stats, but people love those big round numbers: runs, RBIs, home runs, and hits. And he's just piling those up.
Yeah.
Devers is more known nationally as well, and he's the Red Sox crown jewel versus the Austin Riley, the Braves' fifth player people are collecting behind probably Strider, Acuna, Albies, Matt Olson, right? So, Chris, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I have a lot of Devers. I'm a big Devers fan. Long term, as a hobby person, I don't really care about his defense. He is not going to be the guy that racks up a big WAR. Like, that's not his thing. But like Jeff was saying, he gets hits and he hits home runs, and he's on pace. He's 26 years old. I was looking at like calculations. I don't know if it's Baseball Reference or what, but like his likelihood of 3,000 hits if he stays healthy is pretty good for someone his age. Like, he is ahead of the curve. His postseason numbers are ridiculous. If that ever gives someone a bump, he is averaging I think he's averaging 1 RBI per postseason game played. He's got huge moments, like he had a big home run off Verlander in the ALCS. I mean, he's in that YouTube clip of that dude out with the Yankee hat in the bleachers. When Devers took Chapman deep, like there's a guy, it's a very famous YouTube clip. He's like shooting a selfie and he's rubbing his hat, talking about the win, and you can see this soul leave his body as Devers' ball like flies over his head. But Devers just like he also has like more national attention than Riley does. Going back to something Phil said, Riley does have a better butt. I don't really know if that matters, but again, I think that's the type of thing we're going to have to wait and see how that ages as well. But I do like Devers long-term better than Riley from a collecting standpoint.
Yeah.
Emotionally, I'm Team Riley all day.
You take that
what I would
jersey
say
off right now.
Yeah, you just have to be really careful either one of those two, because while either one of them could end up being a Hall of Famer, probably Devers having a slight edge right now based on what you guys are talking about. Like neither one of them has posted anything worthy of a top 3 MVP campaign, right?
No.
So
Correct.
there's currently a ceiling to how they'll finish MVP wise based on their current level of contributions, but they could get better. And maybe one of them will end up with an 8 to 10, percentage walk rate at some point, and that will help them immensely. I think with Devers, he needs to have a season where he hits 300 plus and hits 30 home runs at the same time. I don't know if he's done that yet. He needs to do stuff like that because, again, his contributions are a bit limited versus a guy like, well, I'd say Ronald Acuna, but he's been a defensive zero this year
compared to him. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone is limited compared to him. Exactly,
Sure.
Jeff.
I want to challenge everybody. We're going to stop this episode any second, but I want to challenge you all. The last 3 seasons, 2021 to 2023, the last 3 full seasons, Austin Riley has finished top 10 MVP voting twice, while Devers has finished top 10 MVP voting 0 times.
Yeah.
Austin Riley has 17.5 WAR versus 11.1, so almost you're approaching double. It's like 50%.
Oh, he's that much ahead?
Yes, the last 3 years, because he's really kicked on offensively. It's been crazy. And defensively, he's an average to above average. OPS plus, they actually tied an OPS at 873, but for whatever reason, ballpark factors favored Devers because he's at 133 OPS plus versus 132. Both have the same number of all-star appearances. Both have the same number of silver sluggers. Austin Riley leads Devers in batting average and home runs and hits and everything besides RBI. So if I had, I had to put $1,000 in someone, I would consider Austin Riley because you can probably get a better card for cheaper anyways. So just my thoughts.
Okay.
Not saying I'm going to do it, but just my thoughts.
If you have that up, I'm just curious, where did Devers finish in MVP voting in 2021?
2021, he was 11th. And
Yeah.
Wow.
So he has no top 5s in 6 years. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
No, he is 12th, 11th, and 14th. And then Austin Riley was 6th and 7th, which is very impressive, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, even in his 2019 campaign when he was 22, he only finished MVP 12, and that he did hit 311 that season with 32 home runs.
Okay.
Led the league in doubles.
Austin Riley's last 3 years, 33 home runs, 38 home runs, 34 home runs so far.
Yeah. And Riley's biggest skill, well, one of his biggest skills is he's on the field. Like he plays. He plays every day.
So I don't know. Let's take a vote. If you're a team, I guess we have to ask because I'll just go in a circle because there's people who aren't seeing us. I would take Riley. Jeff.
Devers.
Teapot.
Riley.
Chris.
I hope he's not watching. I hope Riley's not watching, but I'm going to say Devers.
Lance.
Scott,
Producer Lance.
Scott, you're my guy. I got to go with Riley with you.
Okay, Phil, are you going to take Devers or Riley here?
Whatever one's cheaper today. If it's Riley, I'll go Riley.
Phil, none of this. Get off that fence. Is Riley cheaper? Is that what you're saying? You're picking Riley?
Yeah, if he's cheaper, I'll take Riley. I consider them kind of the same player. And then like Kyle Tucker a little bit below.
Below. Okay, that's our next week's
That's
segment.
next week.
Oh, boy.
That's
Next week.
But
He's even cheaper, right? Or no?
Way cheaper. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He and Riley are probably around the same, I think.
Got it.
I think that's going to wrap us up for today. I just want to say thank you, everybody out there, for listening. I think if you're listening on YouTube, put in some comments. Tell us what you guys want us to talk about. And if you're anywhere else, make sure that you guys see. Go and check out each one of these guys' channels. Send them messages about the things that they want to hear. That you want to hear about. And we'll catch you next time on Spitballin' Cards.
like and subscribe.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.